Welcome to JetsCentralRadio with Mike O'Connor and Joe Caporoso from TurnOnTheJets.com.
Everywhere I used to cop in Harlem, all of my Dominicanos right there up on Broadway. Pulled me back to that McDonald's, took it to my stash spot, 560 State Street. Catch me in the kitchen like a Simmons whipping pastry. Cruising down A Street, off-white Lexus, driving so slow, but BK is from Texas. Me, I'm out there.
What's up, New York City? Turn on the Jets podcast back with our 6th episode. Going to be running the show solo tonight. Just Joe Caporoso here, owner, editor-in-chief of TurnOnTheJets.com. Very excited about tonight's show. We got Antwan Barnes joining us shortly. Newly signed linebacker for the Jets. Was in San Diego the past couple of years and in Baltimore before that, where he played for Rex Ryan. And then later we're going to have wide receiver Joseph Collins. He's in his second year with the team. He's going to be one of the guys battling for a roster spot at one of the thinner positions on the team. So a guy who definitely will have a chance to make some noise in training camp in the preseason. Tonight, real happy. We got a nice little feedback on Twitter. I got about 12 of your questions that we're going to go throughout the course of the show. Shout out, Twitter handle, go through your question, make sure we get it answered. I never take the time to do this enough, but always extremely grateful for all you guys out there who are reading, commenting, interacting with us on Twitter, and not just me, all our different writers on Twitter and the Facebook page. It's all greatly appreciated. We've been growing. We're able to get the staff up to 10 people now, and that really allows us to keep new content consistently coming, and allow you to hopefully always find something new when you're clicking through to our site throughout the day. Today on the site, we actually ran one of our roundtables. It was one of the bigger ones we ran, had 8 of our 10 writers on it. And what we did is we discussed expectations for this year's rookie class. And it's a rookie class that we're all pretty excited about. And I don't see any reason that people should not be excited about it. Anytime that you get the value the Jets got at 9 with Milner, at 13 with Richardson, and then even with Geno at 39 and Brian Winters in the 3rd round, I think everybody with this draft class gets very wrapped up, in just discussing Geno Smith. He's the quarterback. He was the biggest name guy they selected, but let's not forget that D. Milner is more than likely going to be a day one starter on this team, a corner, which is such a critical position in Rex Ryan's defense, and that Sheldon Richardson, I think, really has a chance to be an X factor on this defense, playing alongside Muhammad Wilkerson and Quentin Coples. It's, having guys like that around him, it's going to prevent offenses from double teaming anybody on that front, which was an issue a lot for Wilkerson last year. And then when Coples was playing, teams would just double team them because there was no issue leaving guys like Sione Pua, who was playing through injuries last year, or Mike DeVito one-on-one, because they weren't beating their one-on-one blocks to get after the quarterback. While we know that a guy like Richardson at least has the skill set to do that, same with Coples, who will be on the field a lot more this year. Keep in mind, Coples led the team in sacks last season, but only played 47% of the snaps. Moving past those guys at the top, Brian Winters is another guy, a very good value pick, who a ton of people aren't talking about. But Winters in the 3rd round, which is where we've seen a lot of successful guards taken, is a guy who's probably going to start from day one. And we had Mike Nolan on our site do a film breakdown of Steven Peterman, a veteran the Jets brought in to compete for the starting guard spot, along with Willie Colon, along with Brian Winters, along with everybody else, they have it in-house. And Peterman at this phase of his career is not a guy you want to be leaning on as a starter. He's really more of a swing backup, a guy who could play guard or center. He's not someone you want starting 16 weeks of the season. And from our earlier film breakdown of Winters, he's a little rough around the edges, but the physicality is there, and I think he's the kind of guy who's going to make an impression in training camp and probably walk into that starting job. And then I know they have a couple developmental linemen after that, William Campbell and Ibushi, guys who will probably be backups, practice squad type players in year one. But don't forget about Tommy Bohannon in the 7th round, a guy who's only competing against Lex Hilliard for the starting fullback job. And a fullback in this offense, of Marty Morningway's offense, is going to catch a lot of passes. Someone pointed out in our roundtable today that Corey Schlesinger, not necessarily remembered as a receiving fullback, caught over 100 passes in 2 seasons when playing under Morning Way in Detroit. So that could really be a factor position on the Jets offense. It's a spot where, we think the running backs are going to be highly involved in the passing game because of, some of the lack of experience at receiver and tight end. So, not just the halfbacks involved in the passing game, but also the fullback position. Before we get into getting Antwan on and going through his questions with him, I definitely want to go through some of your guys' questions on Twitter. So we'll start out with the first one I got today. Scrolling down, we got one in from Boots McGinnis, Twitter handle, just at Boots McGinnis, spelled exactly as it sounds. And he asked, is Mike Goodson facing any disciplinary action from the league? We haven't heard any breaking news on this case. The last we heard was that the way the case was going, it was sounding like the gun possession charge was going to be handed off to the person that Goodson was in the car with, which means the case is kind of in limbo right now. So for now, it seems like Goodson's going to be good to go for training camp. I mean, training camp starts in a week. We haven't heard anything. So I would anticipate Goodson being a part of this Jets offense this season, and a relatively big part of it is Chris Ivory's primary backup and the team's third down back. All right, we're going to hop into a quick break.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
All right, we're back with our first guest of the night. It is New York Jets wide receiver Joseph Collins. Joe, thanks for taking the time to stop by. We appreciate you having you on tonight.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me.
So training camp, about a week away. How did you spend most of your summer getting ready for heading up to Cortland next week?
Man, just a lot of running and lifting, make sure my body is in shape, and trying to ice bath and stretch a lot just to make sure no type of injury. So when I get there, I'm fresh.
Now you spent time with the team last year. Now you're coming back for another training camp with them. Who on the roster do you kind of look up to and try to mentor your game after, or just try to pick their brain about tips for being a receiver in the NFL?
Antonio, by far, with all of the accolades that he already accomplished in his career, he has to be like the biggest role model for everybody. I still remember when he had caught the game-winning touchdown for the Super Bowl against when he was playing for the Steelers. I always tell him about that. He just laughs. It was a big, that was one of the moments in my life where I was like, man, I want to be something like that. And then I actually get to meet him. So he has to be one by far that's like a mentor towards me. So I always ask him questions and for tips when I'm on the field or any type of help with certain routes or anything.
All right, nice. So now when looking at what you feel you could bring to the Jets offense and to the receiving core, what kind of particular skill set do you think that you could really distinguish yourself from for the rest of the group? Is there a spot that you're more comfortable playing? Are you more comfortable being out at split end? Are you also confident in your ability to slide inside and work in the slot if they ask that from you as well?
I'm confident wherever they want me to be. I know what I have to do. I know my job, my assignments for each play. So wherever they put me out, I feel that I could go in there and help the team and try to get some wins.
And now, obviously, as a guy who's going to be fighting for a roster spot, playing special teams and making an impact on special teams is a big part of that. Are you, comfortable with, going out there and trying to make an impression on, some of the coverage units or some of the return units? Or, do you have any previous experience with that from, when you were starting out in college?
Yeah, I'm comfortable doing every team, actually. So whatever they ask me to do, I can do it. I don't have no problem running down there in the tackles or blocking. Is part of the game. So if somebody has to do it, it's the dirty work.
So looking at this year's offense under Marty Morningway, kind of a new regime on that side of the ball compared to last year, how has it been picking up Morningway's offense? How does it compare to other offenses that you worked in? Is there a buzz around the team about what he's bringing to that side of the ball?
Yeah, we're obviously spreading it out because we're not the West Coast, but it was a lot. It was a lot to learn, but it was pretty fast to pick it up. It wasn't as difficult. Pretty much like whatever the play says, you pretty much know what everybody's supposed to do. So it wasn't hard trying to pick it up at all. And we just want to bring some excitement and try to make some plays.
So obviously a big topic around this team, is the quarterback position. And, I know, you might not spend a ton of time with the guys, but what is the general feel that you get around the team and about the quarterback position? Are guys excited to see Mark and Gino compete for this job? What is the chatter going around the team on it?
I think we're just trying to win games. So whoever wins the spot, that's what it is. But I feel we're confident with whoever goes out there and knows what they're doing and that delivers the ball and gets us in the right position to win the game. That's pretty much what everybody else is talking about on the team, just winning games. So whoever does that, that's how I feel the team's going to be.
All right. Look a little further back into your past. What drew you to go to Weber State when you were looking at different colleges to play at?
Well, they're the first team to offer me a scholarship, so I felt like I had that. That there was like one of the decisions, and then I also had a childhood friend that I grew up with that he already went straight out of high school. So I went to junior college first, so he had a little bit to do with my decision making too. So once I already knew he was there, and it made it a little bit easier just to pick that school.
Okay. And I know you also had an experience up in the Canadian League. Did you talk about just how that compared to just playing football, American football? What was the experience like up there?
I thought it was pretty much the same. Besides just being able to move, like for all the receivers to be able to move before the ball and playing on a wider field. That's really the only difference. Other than that, it's just the same as football. And then let's go 3 downs instead of 4. So just a little bit of different rules, but pretty much just the same.
All right. And then I guess just one final question, and we'll let you get on your way. Go back to getting ready for a training camp. Other side of the ball, who's a guy that we don't hear that much about on the Jets defense that you know of that we should be keeping an eye on in camp this year?
Oh, man. So everybody on the defense really be flying around, so I think it's like it's pretty well like the whole defense is really like something to be looking at. I think our defense really going to be like the heart of the team. I think that's what every team defense, they always say defense wins championships. So I really think just watching the whole defense, I think it's going to be pretty much a good watch for the training camp.
All right, man. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time. We'll be pulling for you up in Cortland, and good luck with everything this summer. We'll be rooting for you.
All right, thanks for having me.
Cigar fans, check out fifthdowncigar.com and enter the coupon code PFC to get 10% off your order. Lots of nice high-end cigars. That's fifthdowncigar.com. Enter the code PFC for 10% off your order.
Oh, that was a word from our sponsor. Very fancy sounding. I like it. We're going to have to get some Mike Francesa voiced over quotes here talking about his My Box and stuff along those lines. We're going to be having radio spots like that. Anyway, that was Joe Collins. We were really happy he took the time to stop by. A guy who we'll be pulling for in training camp. That receiver position is wide open. So, for a guy like him, it's a great opportunity to make an impression. I want to go back into your guys' questions on Twitter before we get to Antwan Barnes to wrap up the show. Dan Cohen at DC914 asked, which young player improves the most this year, like Wilkerson and Curley? Copels, Davis, Hill, other. Wilkerson and Curley's jump last year was such a nice silver lining on what was an otherwise dismaying 2012 season. Wilkerson should have been an all-pro player. I think the film doesn't lie about that. And Curley, a guy who is really underrated by, I think, even some Jet fans still. He was terrific last year. He was really the Jets' only consistent receiving option week to week, and they moved him all over the place. And considering how awful Sanchez was playing and the whole Tebow mess, and then McElroy was involved, the fact that he was able to put up the numbers he put up last year is extremely impressive. Curley is more than just a pure slot receiver, and I will continue to say that. Jets lined him up at split end. They put him in flanker last year. They moved him all over the place, and he was game for it. So don't pigeonhole that guy to just being a number 3 receiver because he's a player. But in terms of this year, Copel is a guy that I think needs to be a double-digit sack guy. There's too much talent there for him not to be. The fact that he got 5.5 sacks last year, and people forget he had 2 other sacks taken away because of illegal hands to the face where he swung his arm and hit, quarterback's face mask, and he had 2 sacks wiped off the board because of that. And that was in 47% of the snaps as is. So now figure he's at, a minimum of 65 or 70%. He should be a guy who's right around that 10, 11 sack threshold. And please God, the Jets have not had a guy with double-digit sacks since John Abraham in 2005. I'm going to repeat that. The Jets have not had a guy with double-digit sacks since John Abraham in 2005. That is mind-blowing. In that span of time, the Jets have made the playoffs, 4 times, won 4 playoff games. They still, no double-digit sacks. It's crazy. So hopefully Copels breaks that streak this year. He's the guy on defense I would keep an eye on. Hill, I'm not there yet on him. I think he needs to get healthy first. He needs to show more consistency catching the football. I think, let's say Holmes is healthy and ready to roll from week 1. I'm starting Holmes and Curley. They're playing the overwhelming majority of my staffs because they're my 2 best receivers right now. I'm starting Hill out as a situational deep threat. I'm getting him slowly more and more acclimated to the offense. And then hopefully by the end of the season, he's a consistent deep threat and a guy that is really ready to become a full-time split end. I wouldn't put my hopes on him as a second-year guy to make that jump. I hope he does because the Jets badly need it to happen, but I'm not necessarily sure he's that guy. Austin Howard's a guy who's going into his 3rd year, and I thought he was pretty good last year. He was very good against the run, very mediocre against the pass. I think Morningway's offense will help cover up some of his pass protection issues, and I think he's going to have a very strong year, and it's going to be interesting to see how much money the Jets are willing to invest in him in the offseason to be their long-term right tackle if he does go through and have a good year. So I keep an eye on him on offense. Everybody's very high into Mario Davis as a second-year player. The talent's there. The hype is there. Again, he's a guy who played very, very limited reps last year and looked like he still has a little bit of a way to go. I think he's going to start this year. I think he will be a competent starter. Is he going to be, a massive playmaker on this defense? I'm not sure he's ready to be there yet. There's going to be mistakes he makes, but definitely an exciting guy to keep an eye on. And, on a team like this that's rebuilding, you let him, work the kinks out on the field, and at least he has the speed to chase around running backs and linebackers, which Bart Scott certainly did not last year. I'm pretty sure he's still chasing Shane Vereen from last Thanksgiving. Let's not bring up that game. That was a tough night for all of us. Anyway, moving on. JB, Twitter handle @Montreal57, said, who do you see getting the last spot at corner? Edwards or Berry? Referring to Mike Edwards, an undrafted corner from Hawaii, and Aaron Berry, who the Jets signed last year over from Detroit. I don't think Berry's in competition for the last spot at corner. I think Aaron Berry is a lock to make the team and a guy who's going to push Kyle Wilson for reps in the nickelback slot corner role, and a guy who might even get some looks at free safety in certain formations if Josh Bush is struggling. Aaron Berry could play, and as a natural skill set, he looked very good at times in Detroit, and I think he's going to be a factor on the Jets' defense this year. There's not, unless barring an injury, there's not much of a doubt in my mind that he makes the roster. Edwards is an intriguing guy because he has some ability as a kick returner, and that obviously increases his value. Edwards is really competing with guys like Isaiah Trufant, Ellis Langster, for that last spot at corner. I think when you look at corner, you're going to see Cromartie, Milner, Wilson, Aaron Berry, Darren Walls as your top 5 guys who I think are safe to make the roster. And I think that last spot or two will be between Edwards, Langster, and Trufant, like I said. And if Edwards can distinguish himself as a kick returner, maybe he sticks. I mean, McKnight, if he does stick on the final 53, which is probable, I would say at this point, that kind of might knock Edwards out. He might just be a practice squad guy, but he was an exciting player to watch in college. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on throughout the preseason. Mike G, which is @Young_press, he asked, are there any good veteran receivers that you see becoming available after training camp? Need depth there badly. The Jets definitely do need depth at receiver, and we went through their position, top to bottom a few days ago on the site, and it's hard to feel comfortable at this exact moment with what they have, especially with the reality that Santonio Holmes may start the season on the PUP list, which is a scary reality. Braylon Edwards isn't happening. I get asked about him at least 5 times a day, every day. John Idzik is not a fan. It's not happening, so I don't see any further reason to address it. Just aren't going to sign him. Brandon Lloyd is still out there. I don't see the Jets going down that route. He has a reputation as a bad locker room guy, and I think anyway he's going to want to go to more of a contender, whether it's going back to New England if their receivers are struggling in camp, or whether it's going to Baltimore where they still need to replace Antwan Bolden and they're kind of handing his old job off to a few different young guys. I don't necessarily see the Jets looking at Lloyd. I think the Jets are going to invest more heavily in receiver next offseason when they have money to spend in free agency and, a bunch of draft picks to deal with. Another veteran for this upcoming year, I would keep an eye on a guy like Nate Washington in Tennessee. The Titans are kind of overloaded with young receivers right now, and Washington's a productive guy. I just don't know if there's enough reps to go around. He's the kind of guy, if he shakes loose, could come in and play 30, 40 snaps a game for you and, be competent and get the job done. He's a pro. He's been productive throughout his time in Pittsburgh and Tennessee. So you keep an eye out for guys like that. It's going to be interesting to see who gets cut or if the Jets maybe swing a trade for a late-round draft pick at some point. I'm sure they want to see how their young guys play in the preseason. Maybe a guy like Zach Rogers or Ryan Spadola has a huge preseason and they feel a little better about receivers. So it's very touch and go at that spot. It'll be interesting to see if they actually do go down the route of aggressively going after a veteran. Tim Kovac, another guy, really appreciate all the responsiveness on Twitter and following the site, asked, can we call up Jumbo Elliott? Rumor has it we have a weak receiving core and that man has hands. The Monday Night Miracle was just getting played on the NFL Network last week. Good memories, man. That game and that Jet team, that 2001 Jet team that started off 4-0 and missed the playoffs with the Christmas Eve meltdown with Vinny Testaverde getting picked off 99 yards by Chris McAllister. What a shame that team couldn't make the playoffs. That was Al Groh's only year as a Jets head coach, but that Monday Night Miracle game was, one for the ages, and I don't think Jumbo's going to be able to help the Jets out this year, but we will always have the memory of that catch. And it was funny when you're watching that game, you forget that it was really Lavernius Cole's coming out party. He caught his first career NFL touchdown that night. Jermaine Wiggins caught a touchdown. It's like a lot of random touchdowns occurring in the second half of that game, and obviously Jumbo's being the most random of all. But that moment, man, what a game! Jake Dawson at New Jake City asked, what do you think the team would have to do to make the playoffs this year? It's a big question and a loaded question. I would say the Jets' route to the playoffs is the 2009 model, which is they're going to have they need to have a very, very good defense, like a top 3 to 5 defense that is consistently keeping them in games, causing turnovers and making plays. And for that to happen, you need D. Milner to have a very big rookie year, Sheldon Richardson to have a very big rookie year, Quentin Coples to be a double-digit sack guy, Wilkerson and Cromartie to play to their expected all-pro levels, and a guy like Demario Davis to really thrive in a starting role. So you need a lot of these if questions answered positively to make that Jet defense not just a good, solid, top 10, 12 defense, but an actual elite top 3 to 5 defense. And on offense, you're going to need a power running game, a dominant running game to really complement that defense. And the offensive line and the talent of running back is probably in place for that. I mean, if Ivory and Goodson are healthy for 16 games and Willie Colon's healthy, the Jets are going to be able to run the ball. And if you can run the ball and play defense, they'll be competitive in most games. And maybe they hover around 500 and the AFC's down a little bit and they find a way to sneak in. Obviously, a huge key that kind of overarches all of that is whoever is playing quarterback has to protect the football, whether it's Mark Sanchez or Geno Smith. You can't win with the 2 interceptions and a fumble every week. You have to protect the ball, even if it limits the explosiveness of the offense. Just don't hand points to the other team. And if the Jets can get that, then maybe they're surprising people. I mean, people forget that 2009 team. I mean, Sanchez's stats that year, I believe he had 12 touchdowns and 20 interceptions, and their defensive running game was actually good enough to overcome that and make them a 9-7 playoff team. There was also, obviously, the Colts resting their starters in Week 16, and was kind of a screwy year in the AFC, but you never know. I do think people will say the Jets are a 2 to 3 win team or off base. I do think as of now, they probably look more like a 6 to 7 win team. Could that get to 8 and 9 if everything breaks right? Sure, why not? I mean, crazier things have happened. 2006 and 2009 come to mind as years where the Jets had pretty low expectations and overachieved a bit and managed to make the playoffs. We're going to take a quick break now. We got through all your Twitter questions. I really appreciate everybody taking the time to send them in. This is something we definitely want to do a little more of on a consistent basis. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your feedback. Like I said, make sure you're following the site on Facebook. It's just Facebook on /@TurnTheJets. Following me on Twitter @TurnTheJets and all our writers. And, tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what your concerns are of the team. Tell us what film you want us to break down. We're always looking for an excuse to, dig into that all 22 and have different players in the team where we could break down, what we saw from them last year and what we expect from them this year. We're always happy to do that, so don't hesitate to send your suggestions along. We're going to hop into a break real quick, and we'll take it from there.
Football fans, check out ProFootballCentral.com for all the latest NFL news and analysis. Also, check out the very popular Pro Football Central Radio Network for awesome NFL talk around the league. Go to ProFootballCentral.com. ProFootballCentral.com.
All right, rolling into our second question we got from Max at NickSwag.com. Good time to shout out Turn on the Knicks, our sister site. We're actually also looking for a couple new writers over there. Shoot me an email, joec@turnontheknicks.com, if you're looking to write about the Knicks or the NBA. Max asks, in your mind, is Antonio Cromartie an elite defensive back in the NFL? I would say after the season he had last year, he is. Yeah, I think he was one of the 3 to 5 best cornerbacks in football last season. The year before that, he was probably more of like a top 10 to 15 guy. But after the Revis injury last year, he was manning up the other team's best receiver week in and week out and really embraced that role in the Jets defense. And if he goes out and has another season like that this year, and he'll have plenty of challenges. He's going to get Julio Jones. He's going to get A.J. Green. He's going to get Vincent Jackson. Got Mike Wallace twice. I think you have to say he's really one of the best cornerbacks in football. I mean, athletically, he's always been there, but I think Rex and the Jets coaching staff, Dennis Thurman, have really helped him, fine-tune and be consistent with his technique and got him into a system that really plays to his strengths, which is man-to-man, playing aggressively. The more Cromartie plays physical and with his hands, the better he is. And, really saw the best of him last year, and a guy who's really gotten better with each passing year with the Jets. One of the traits from the Tannenbaum era that you have to give him credit for because it's panned out very well so far for the team. We got a question from Jets Mets Knicks. His Twitter handle is @BlueandOrange7. Big fan of the site. Definitely appreciate you reading and all the Twitter love you give us. He said, what's the realistic expectations we can have for @God for short, which is Sheldon Richardson? It's no secret we're very excited about Richardson's potential at the site. I don't know if Richardson's going to be a quote-unquote starter from day one. It doesn't really matter in the Jets defense. He's going to be heavily involved in their sub packages, their nickel packages as a key interior pass rusher. In terms of putting a number on, sacks or production, that's difficult to do. I do think he will play more as the season progresses. And I can see him being a guy who with maybe like 4 to 6 sacks who is starting to consistently make disruptive plays more and more as the season goes on and really starts to develop into his own in his second year. Kind of like what we're hoping from Quentin Coples, who showed flashes last year, finished with 5.5 sacks, and Wilkerson, who quietly had a very good rookie season and then last year was an absolute monster. Moving on, we got a question from @JoeyJets12. Who's a better fit for Morningway's system, Sanchez or Geno? Really good question. Morningway brings over a West Coast offense, although you never want to pigeonhole him into just being a West Coast offense. It's more diverse. It's more complicated than that. At the same time, there's going to be a lot of the elements, of what we saw Morningway do in Philadelphia, and even going further back to what he did in his time with Detroit. And, what you're going to see is a lot of quick releases, a lot of screens, a lot of routes based on timing and reading the defense, option routes. It's stuff that Sanchez defenders will happily say that Sanchez that will play to his strengths, and people who hate Sanchez will say, well, he can't throw any screens, he can't do this. Chances are it's probably somewhere in the middle. I think Sanchez and Geno both have strengths that will play to what Morningway is trying to do, and I think more importantly, Morningway will play his offense to the strengths of the quarterback who's starting. And I think he's probably has a good feel for what Sanchez can and can't do from breaking down all the tape of him. Geno, it's going to be a work in progress. You're going to have to see what he's successful with in training camp, what he's doing well with in preseason. I think at the core of it, you're going to want a guy who's going to protect the football, a guy who's going to be effective in the short passing game and the screen game, because the Jets, they're going to be a run-heavy offense just based on their personnel, and they have talented running backs, so you're also going to want to get involved in the passing game. And even your receivers like Curley and Holmes, get them a short screen, let them run in space with it. So if Geno was a guy who was accurate with that quick timing passing game in college. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he really gets acclimated to that offense, and if he can really hit the ground running next week. I mean, camp starts already. We got a question from Mikey T at Mikey_T. I stay in Scotland, so we got a Jets fan all the way out in Scotland. Great to hear. Says, will I regret staying up till 5 a.m. to watch the Pats game in week 2? Should I just go to bed and avoid the pain? I'd love to sit here and tell you first off, of course you should stay up and watch the game. You're a Jets fan. You only get 16 games a year. You're going to watch it. But in terms of your hopes for the Jets in that game, history is not on their side. Outside of the history that New England's just consistently a better team than the Jets over the past decade or so, Thursday night games have been brutal for the road team, and they've been brutal for teams who kind of have a shakier quarterback situation. A good point that Mike Lombardi used to make last year prior to him getting the job with the Cleveland Browns when he was on, the radio circuit and writing for NFL.com, is that when you have such a quick turnaround for a Thursday game, it's a huge benefit to have a veteran quarterback with an established offensive system in place, because you get such a chop down on your game planning time. So if you think about it, the Jets and Pats are both going to play Sunday, week 1. You're going to have basically a day to heal and then a day or two to get your game plan together, and then you're back on the field. Who's that going to be easier for? Is it going to be easier for Tom Brady, who's been the Patriots quarterback for, over a decade, who knows the offense and is a Hall of Fame guy, or is it going to be easier for Mark Sanchez or Geno Smith adapting to a new offensive coordinator? It's a big benefit for New England. And on top of that, New England's going to be home. They don't have to travel. It's a very tough spot for the Jets. The Jets are going to be, regardless of what happens week 1, the Jets are probably going to be double-digit underdogs in that game, and reasonably so. I mean, you never know what could happen. Crazier things have happened. We've seen the Jets beat New England under Rex Ryan more than once, but that's a tough game for them. People go crazy about the Jets' schedule. That first 4 isn't that hard, but of the first 4, that short week in New England is easily the toughest game, and it's going to be a hell of a challenge early in the season for whoever's playing quarterback and, whoever wins a lot of these jobs coming out of camp. Moving right along here, I'm going to go back to Boots McGinnis just because I like this question he asked so much. He said, what position will you be playing in the flag football tournament this Saturday, and do you project to be a starter impact player? What he's referring to is that our website and plenty of other Jet fans on other Jet websites are participating in a charity flag football tournament for Santonio Holmes' foundation. He runs to raise money and awareness for sickle cell, which one of his children have, I believe. So a great cause that we're happy to contribute to, and our friends over at U Stadium are putting the event together. It's over on Roosevelt Island, so Team Turn on the Jets will be in attendance. It'll be myself, Cole Patterson, Connor Rogers, Dalvin Asario, all from our site, TJ Rosenthal, among a few other people. And we are very excited and very much expecting to win this tournament. I will be playing wide receiver, the position I played in college, D3, so I'm not bragging too much. I mean, I played at Muhlenberg, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Centennial Conference champions, but let's just say I wasn't being considered for the NFL draft after I graduated in 2009. However, I will be starting at receiver for Team Turn the Jets on Saturday, and I do project myself to not just be a starter, but probably be the best receiver out there. And that includes you, Santonio, because I know you're still rehabbing that foot right now, so you're only on one leg, so I'm going to give myself the advantage for this Saturday. Moving on, we got a question from Evan Whaley, just at Evan Whaley, another guy who's been a big fan of the site for a while, always interacting with us on Twitter. Really appreciate it. He asked, when looking at Barnes and Coples, how is the transition working for Quentin Coples, and how is it going to work for him? And with Coples, something that's important to remember is that the story of him moving to outside linebacker is something that kind of gets easily overblown when certain people pigeonhole the Jets as a 3-4 defense too much. We've done plenty of film breakdown on the site that points to this, but the Jets run so many different looks and spend so much time in 4-man fronts and a 46 look and with traditional 4-3 that to get wrapped up in Coples being a 3-4 linebacker isn't really worth it. He's going to play in the rush position, which he did a lot towards the end of last season anyway. Coples' job on the Jets defense is going to be to rush the quarterback, whether that's an end in the 4-3, whether that's from nose tackle or defensive tackle in the 4-3 or 46, whether it's as a stand-up outside linebacker in the 3-4. The Jets aren't going to have Coples in coverage more than 5 or 10% of the time. When he's on the field, which should be a lot more than 47% of snaps this year, his primary job is going to be to get after the quarterback. I think maybe, yes, you will see him play a little more in space than you did last year, but don't picture Coples as being almost like a replacement for someone like Brian Thomas or something. It's just different kind of players, and Coples has a very, very unique skill set. He's one of the most athletically gifted players in the defense and really the entire team. There was a reason, the Jets spent a first-round pick on him, and we saw that potential last year. So when Coples is on the field, he's on the field to get after the quarterback primarily, and Rex Ryan's going to move him around in the best way possible to do that. All right, we're going to take a break real quick and then get back into one of our guests.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
All right, we're going to wrap stuff up tonight with our second guest. Very happy to have him on. Newly acquired New York Jets outside linebacker. Came over from San Diego, Antwan Barnes. Antwan, how you doing tonight?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited, man. Training camp about a week away. You excited to get up to Cortland and get back to playing in a Rex Ryan defense?
Oh, very excited. This is a dream come true. Ready to go up there and make things happen.
So I got to say, there's a lot of buzz around you coming to this team because there's one thing this Jets defense has struggled with the past decade, to be honest. It's getting sacks. The team hasn't had a guy with double-digit sacks since 2005, actually. What can you bring to this defense off the edge as a pass rusher, and do you feel that you can bring more, beyond just being, strictly a guy who's there to get after the quarterback?
I think I bring a whole lot to the table. Just as far as speed, the knowledge of the game, the will to get to the quarterback. I think I bring all that. The competition that we have going on right now is very exciting, which means that once we get on the field, it's going to be something to look out for. The guys we have around us is doing pretty good. The OTAs was pretty good for us. We got to see what guys can do and what guys can't do. So, it's going to work out for the best. We're going to see what's going to happen.
Now, obviously you're a newcomer to the defense, but, still a veteran around the league. Who have you noticed that kind of takes a leadership role on that side of the ball for the Jets?
You said who's going to have to do it?
Or, who have you noticed that you came over that really kind of asserts himself as a leader on the defense, as a new guy in the locker room?
Of course, David Harris. Of course, he's been here his whole career, so he's been the number one guy going in. We came out the same year, so I'm just happy for him. He's pretty much a leader. And you got guys showing it not by word of mouth, but pretty much on the field, like Calvin and David and those guys, they go on the field and show how to be a Jet.
Could you speak to how versatile Rex's defense is? I feel like too many times it gets pigeonholed as just being a traditional 3-4 because you talk to, like, the hybrid and how many different looks or how many different things he's willing to do with his outside linebackers and defensive ends and pass rushers.
I mean, it's pretty versatile. Rex's defense is made for everybody to know everybody's position because you'll never know where you end up at. So if we're in the classroom, Rex asks like a passing situation question is going to go to the D-line. The D-line has to know what the safeties have to do. The safety has to know what the D-line has to do, just so everybody can gel and know what they're doing on the field, so it can be, good communication.
I think when looking at the defense this year and looking at how the team's going to generate a pass rush, everyone's really focusing on two guys. They're focusing on you, and they're focusing on Quentin Coples, who's coming into his second year. What have you seen from Coples, as a guy who came in with high expectations as a first-round pick, and, what kind of havoc do you feel like the two of you could kind of work off the edge, working off one another?
I mean, he has a lot of potential, a lot of upside coming into his second year. I think Rex put things on his shoulders because he believes in him, and it's just time for him to go to work. I told Quentin coming in that him and Mo was one of the main reasons why I came to the Jets because, just because of the pass rushing skills that they have and the skills over everything that they have was the reason why I came.
All right, nice. On that side of the ball, and everybody is expecting this team to be kind of led by the defense. Is there a really high confidence level around that unit, despite Darrell Revis not being around anymore, and despite a couple veterans leaving? Is there still that confidence in the room that just this is a Rex Ryan defense, and you guys are going to be a top 3 to 5 unit in the league, like he usually brings?
Oh, of course. That's what Rex believes coming in every year, that we should be, in the top 5 defense every year. So that's something everybody has to understand. That's something everybody does understand. So going into the season, it's going to be some games we'll have to put, games on our shoulders, and we're up for the challenge.
All right, Antwan, I really appreciate you taking the time to come by. We're going to be rooting hard for you this year. We're waiting for somebody to get double-digit sacks. We've been waiting since 2005, so we hope you and Quentin can both be over that 10-mark threshold this year.
Oh, we're not going to disappoint anybody.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.